Welcome to Cosmic Diaries. This is Priya, your astrologer, and today I want to talk to you about Mars stationing retrograde in Aquarius and Mars' retrograde period in Aquarius, which begins tomorrow. Mars stations retrograde on the 26th of June at 5:04 p.m. Eastern Time in New York, and will be retrograde all the way until the 27th of August 2018. And during the retrograde, it will be retracing its steps in the territory that we've been in since the 14th of May when it first entered shadow. So between the 14th of May and the 26th of June, whatever has been unfolding now, we're going to be retracing our steps over the next 2 months till the end of August. And then Mars will move direct again on the 27th of August at 28 degrees of Capricorn and finally move out of shadow on the 8th of October. So this is a long retrograde phase. Mars is the planet that stations retrograde, the personal planet that stations retrograde most rarely. So the retrogrades happen approximately every 2 years. And the last Mars retrograde that we had was in 2016, and 1 minute. Yeah, from April 17th to June 29th, 2016. So you might want to look back to see what was going on then and to get a sense of this energy. Of course, at the time Mars was retrograde in Sagittarius and Scorpio. This time Mars is retrograde in Aquarius mostly, and then in Capricorn. Moves through the last 2 degrees of Capricorn. So let's talk about this. What is Mars? Mars is fire. Mars is passion. Mars is the god of war. Mars is anger. Mars is our primal impulse, our drive, it's life itself. It's Mars rules Aries, so it's the seed of life, the spark of life itself. And Aquarius is a fixed sign. It's a fixed air sign. It's traditionally ruled by Saturn, and its modern ruler is Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign that rules the individual as well as the collective. And now with Mars stationing retrograde in Aquarius, depending on, of course, where this retrograde phase is taking place in your chart, depending on your sign and your natal chart, of course, and especially if you have planets at about 9 degrees of any of the fixed signs, which is Aquarius, Taurus, Leo, or Scorpio, then you're going to feel this transit a lot more powerfully and personally. But regardless, no matter what's going on in your chart, you're going to feel this energy in a certain area of your life, depending on where the retrograde is happening. And if I have time, I'll get into the 12 signs really quickly as well. But as Mars stations retrograde now, a retrograde cycle is always a time to go inward. I mean, yes, it brings back the past and situations from the past, definitely over the past 2 months since Mars has been in shadow, but also Mars is, as I mentioned, very primal energy. It's the ruler of Aries. So Mars retrogrades will often bring up very childhood wounds and childhood traumas, perhaps, or patterns that we need to now look at so we can become conscious of them, release them, and then move forward with greater awareness and, most importantly, greater self-awareness. In Aquarius, this transit is really highlighting or bringing to a forefront, and the burning issue is, who are you in the midst of a collective? How do you stand alone and be true to yourself and be an individual while still participating and being part of a community and a group of people or a greater collective? And what is your role in the greater collective? Definitely in your life, as well as on a greater scale, because Aquarius deals with, it's the whole, it's collective consciousness. So it's every human being and every sentient being that lives. Whereas the sign of that, Pisces, speaks of the cosmic ocean and oneness. And Pisces is a 12th sign, but I don't want to digress into this too much. But the question with Mars stationing retrograde now is, who am I and how do you fit in into this greater world? Do you feel isolated? Do you feel connected? Do you feel like you belong? And these may be some of the questions coming up for you now. Mars is also very male, masculine energy. And look, the thing in a chart is, a chart alone cannot tell you if it belongs to a man or a woman, or someone who's transgender or gay, or your sexuality. You don't even know if a chart belongs to a person. A chart could relate to an event. So ultimately, it comes back to you. A chart is relevant because you exist and you are living the astrology, and no chart or no transit can box you in to the point of telling you who you are, because who you are is an infinite being. But it's about understanding how you can work with this energy and how you want to manifest it and how you want to use it to create the life that you're trying to create. So with Mars being, coming back to Mars being masculine energy in a chart, so where Venus will represent feminine energy, and we all have that on some scale in our being, and these are your more primal impulses and your more primal desires. So whatever's unfolding now, there's a sense that you've reached a point of, you can't go further than the point that you've gotten to now. And as Mars stations retrograde, you're learning that, okay, there are things that you need, or rather you've come to a certain point and you know where you want to go, but there are things that need to happen before you can move forward. And that's the sense that this retrograde is bringing. And also you're learning that there's a lot more to something, and there's a lot more potential in something, and likely your connections and the people around you, than you have yet seen. And there's more than even people around you. There's a lot more to a situation and you itself than you've yet discovered. Uranus entered Taurus just as Mars entered Shadow, and Uranus being the modern ruler of Aquarius. This was an important shift and a suggestion now that, and Uranus also moved from Aries, which is Mars' sign, into Taurus. So there's a suggestion now that you've seen your potential. The transit of Uranus in Aries, which I'm not going to get into too much, but that has shown you a level of potential within yourself that you've had. And now, as Uranus enters Taurus and Mars stations is now in Taurus and Mars is now going retrograde in Aquarius, this is about the connections that you have with the people, and how do you nurture those connections, and how do you use those connections to create greater harmony for the greater whole, and not in a selfish way in terms of, okay, what do I need and how can I just get what I need, because that will ultimately isolate you. And sure, with Mars, the survival instincts can kick in and your flight or fight mode can kick in, but that's the whole point. It's about cultivating greater self-awareness. And ultimately, this life that we live, it's transient. Everything that exists will one day return to dust, right? But the only thing that matters is the love we share with each other. That's why Aquarius can be, the age of Aquarius. It's about greater harmony in the collective, and it doesn't have to be so. It's not about, only love and light. Yes, there are realities to be faced here, but by being honest with yourself, then you don't have to worry about pleasing others, but it will be a natural response to recognize that you are connected with everyone in your world right now, especially the people that are showing up in your world. And how do you honor these connections? And how do you treat these connections? And sometimes this means having detachment. Aquarius speaks a lot about detachment. So whatever situation you're in, whether it's about your relationships or the situation itself, and no matter how heated something is, in fact, the more heated something is, the more you need detachment from it. That doesn't mean that you're disconnected from it, but because you can't disconnect, things are now going to be in your face where something's coming to a head and you have to deal with it. But in that, there can be freedom. Aquarius is the sign of freedom. So it's about reclaiming a sense of freedom and independence for yourself. So you can be who you are and have a community around you. Aquarius is also very futuristic energy, and it can be weird at times. So things can seem a little strange, but it's also about accepting our differences and the differences that we have with others, and recognizing that each and every one of us is different. But we are all human, and we're all the same in that we're all capable of experiencing the same emotions. And well, the sun is in Cancer at the time of this retrograde, so which is seeding this energy of the retrograde, and it's very emotional. And Aquarius can be very detached from its emotions at times, but because it's an air sign. But the sun in Cancer is reminding you that you are a very sentient being, and feelings can get hurt because Mars can be a little brash. So if your feelings are hurt right now, rather than try to look to blame someone else, or if there might be trust issues arising, even that could be triggered because Mars speaks of trust. There could be abandonment issues arising. There could be, like I said, childhood patterns and traumas arising. The point is to become conscious of them. The point is to become, so you don't project them on current situations. So whatever in your current situation is triggering an emotion, ultimately that is an emotion, and it is your emotion. And you have power and control over your emotions. So it's about you learning to be in control of them. So no one else has the power to trigger you. And then you can deal with situations with maturity. The sun is opposite Saturn at the time of this ingress, Saturn being the traditional ruler of Aquarius. So again, as I mentioned, there's a sense of, you're moving past something in a sense. You're moving past a milestone, and you're becoming clear in what your goals are and what you want next. But as the retrograde unfolds, you have the chance to do what needs to be done so then you can move forward again. Also, it's about really greater self-acceptance because, whatever is going on as far as where do I belong and your relationships with others, Aquarius speaks of acceptance, not just of others, but first and foremost with Mars there especially, it's about yourself. It's being honest with yourself and recognizing the ways that you've changed and how your goals have changed perhaps over the years. I mean, you're not the same person you were 2 months ago, let alone, 2 years ago. So first, before you go ahead charging ahead, question is, do you really know what you want? And then giving yourself permission to want what you want. The sun is opposite Saturn again, and this is about your own authority in your life. And if there are relationships now that are heated up, or you're experiencing a level of disconnect with, or again, it begins with you coming back to yourself and learning to accept yourself better, and then you can connect with others in a more authentic way and be detached from their response. So, 'cause, 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 ' you are who you are. You can't let another person's actions or reactions change or set you in a reactive mode. Watch your ego, because Aquarius is the sign opposite Leo. So, you know, watch that you're not acting out of your ego, or your anger is not out of your ego. I mean, it always is. Anger ultimately is a self destructive emotion. It can be used if you constructively, for sure. You can fuel yourself with anger, but ultimately, it's about having enough of a dispassionate enough approach that you can channel it constructively and consciously. Otherwise, it's just going to end up creating chaos. And I'm not even going to get into the mundane news right now. But this is definitely playing out collectively and across the world. So you're going to see stories of, Mars retrograde in Aquarius surfacing. Like, we're seeing it in the US with children being separated from their families. And I'm not even going to go there right now. But the point is, however small and insignificant you feel right now in the midst of something that's so great and a greater, larger collective, you're here for a reason. You're on this planet for a reason. And you don't have to change the world, but you can be kinder to yourself, and you can be more honest with yourself, and you can be more true to yourself. And then when you move into that space of self-acceptance for yourself, then you can automatically extend that out to others, and that becomes a healing wave. So don't think that you're too small or too powerless to affect change. You are, but that's not even the goal. You just start where you are and do what you can, and you'll find a way forward. Aquarius can tend to, on the one hand, be very individualistic, but on the other hand, it wants harmony. It wants harmony in the collective and in the group. So we can at times, want to keep the peace and want to please others. And in that, we lose ourselves. So this is about finding yourself again and finding your brilliance and what makes you sparkle. And that's what you're rediscovering about yourself in the next 2 months. That what excites you, what inspires you. Aquarius, Mars and Aquarius can be very inspirational, and you can really help mobilize a situation now, or connect with like-minded souls to create something better. When it comes to your personal relationships, there may be people from your past coming back into your life, especially male figures from your past, lovers perhaps, especially. I would say though that during a retrograde, anytime anything happens during a retrograde, is generally a time for closure and completion, and a look back, a retrospective on the past, or it's an internal energy. So things that come up during a retrograde, definitely when it comes to love and romance, there could be sparks that are being reignited, but at the same time, I would suggest that if it's a long-standing committed relationship, then sure, you can reignite the romance. But if this is an ex returning, then it's likely for closure on a situation. Although, I mean, it's not an absolute. You might reconnect with an old lover, but I would still say that wait till Mars is direct to see where things really shake out. Because right now things are up in the air, and this is not just relationships and people, but everything seems to be up in the air. And I would definitely suggest that if you meet someone new during the retrograde phase, then definitely take it slow and wait till till Mars is direct to put all your eggs in one basket. Regardless, that would be my advice. Wait till we're out of these retrogrades. And the thing is that this Mars retrograde incidentally leads into the Venus retrograde cycle. So Mars will be moving out of shadow on the 8th of October. But or sorry, rather, Mars stations direct on the 27th of August, and then Venus will enter shadow on the 2nd of September. So very shortly after Mars stations direct, Venus enters shadow. And then as Mars moves out of shadow on the 8th of October, Venus will already have stationed retrograde on the 5th of October. So really what's happening now is there's a lot of change, and with Venus and Mars, relationships always come into play. And, sparks are flying, but there's a lot of back and forth that's happening. Even if it's not relationships, and depending on where these transits are happening in your chart, there's a sense of moving 2 steps forward, is 1 step back. And the dynamics in relationships are changing. And there are very real shifts happening because Uranus is now in Taurus, which is a very physical sign, and Taurus is also a fixed sign like Aquarius. So the shifts that are unfolding now over the next few months, not just through this Mars cycle, but with Venus's retrograde coming up, which takes us pretty much all the way to the end of the year, this is moving a lot of stuck energy that's been in place for a while. People are moving houses, jobs, careers in some cases, maybe shifting countries, migrating. It's big shifts like that. You could be buying and selling property. They're very real life changes. People getting married, divorced. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying that the shifts that are happening now are not small. They're life changes. So all the more reason, as Mars stations retrograde, it's a chance for you to really come back first and ask yourself what you want. And, as you have clarity on your goals, then you can start to take steps forward accordingly. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more I could say. This is obviously a stream of consciousness, but so I lost my last little clip, and now it's the next day and Mars is about to station direct. But I wanted to just sum it up by saying that this transit really is asking for self-acceptance. And the more you can accept yourself and be inspired by the world around you and people around you, and the more you accept yourself, you can accept others' differences. But recognize that ultimately we are one. So it's the love you share that matters. And you're not trapped in a situation. You have a lot more potential, and there's a lot more opportunities and possibilities around you. It's a matter of you being open to them. And things that you may never have dared dream possible might be possible now. But again, it comes back to you daring to accept your own desires and being more self-aware of your own desires, of your passions, of your fears, of your traumas, and of your of what you want of yourself, really. Then you can consciously direct this energy and work towards what you're trying to create. Also, as I mentioned, your goals are coming into focus, and Mars in Aquarius is really, this retrograde can be a very liberating period, because what you're learning is Aquarius is about liberation, but the liberation comes from recognizing that you're already free. You're an infinite being, and you're moving past your own limitations now. And the more you can go inward to find what makes you come alive, you'll be able to inspire others and be an inspiration to others just simply by your being. And yeah, there are, yes, as we go retrograde, then there are things that you're discovering and new information that's coming to the surface. Keep an open mind, look for possibilities, and you will find them. You are not trapped, and you are more than free, and you have options now. So that's all what I want to say to you for now. I have already started recording a set of 12 videos for the individual signs for Mars and Aquarius, but I'm going to put them up when I have all of them. So please be patient with me. I know I still have to finish the Uranus and Taurus videos, uploading them, but I'll get to them soon. I'm certainly not above the astrology, and life has been interesting to say the least. And I'm looking forward to this Mars retrograde to see what comes up. But yeah, so I'll be back with more. And of course, this is a very general reading. So if if you want a more personal consultation, please email me and we can set up a time and schedule on Skype, and I can speak to you wherever you are in the world, and we can look more closely at what's going on with you and your chart. I am offering a special for the Mars retrograde and the Venus retrograde to see where these transits are taking place for you and what they mean for you. That is $108 for 60 minutes for one session, or if you want to do both the Mars and the Venus retrograde, it's $175 for 2 consultations. That's 2 for the price of 1. So I hope you take advantage of that, and I hope you find these videos useful. And if you do, please do like, subscribe, and share them. And I'll be back with more very soon. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.